Bev's Video Kingdom is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised.
I can grab your favorite podcast. Let's start this thing.
Woo! Bev's Video Kingdom, we are here. It is Tuesday, and we are talking about one of my favorite movies of all time. This is Zach, and I'm sitting here with my boy Brad.
Yo!
And what up, Nate?
Hello.
Children of Men came out in 2006, starring Clive Owen, and man, Alfonso Cuaron just absolutely floors the shit out of me in this movie. I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody has it pulled up. I don't know how much money this movie made. We'll look it up in a little bit, but it doesn't matter to me. I feel like this movie is shot for shot as good as anything that came out around that time, and it is just absolutely unreal. It builds tension. It makes you feel scared for the future. It makes you feel bad for the characters. Clive Owen's character isn't great, but he's not like he's not a goody two shoes, but he's not like a terrible person either. He kind of comes through when the call comes to him. So I'm curious what you guys thought about this. Had you seen this movie, Brad? Is this one that you had seen previously?
I had not, and I typically like dystopian movies, and I had not seen this one, and just I did give it a look, and I'm assuming on the back end they did some decent money, but
they didn't.
76 million budget, 70 million worldwide.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So they lost money at the box office.
But I think that for like movie people, and I don't consider myself a movie people. I'm not a movie people. But for me,
I know movie people.
But for me, I think this movie is masterfully done, and I think that people appreciate it, but I don't think that translated into dollars for the studio. Agreed or disagree?
I watched it with my son, and he was like, "This is one of the best movies I've ever seen."
Yes, and I had the same feeling.
It's certainly not one that feels like it's going to have a big run, cult classic feel. So if it didn't make the money at the box office, I'm guessing it's not seen as a later success in terms of the money.
No, not at all.
But it's one that I think had a lot of critical acclaim. I think people that are, as you say, how did you put it?
Movie people.
People, yeah. People that appreciate movies, I think see it as a really good movie. Speaking of which, we have a movie people.
We have movie people.
So we've got a fourth here for the Children of Men episode, and that's my cousin Jeremy. What's up, man?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
So Jeremy and I, Jeremy is a few months younger than me. We're second cousins.
And he's so much taller than you.
He's so much taller and better.
When we met him, because Nate totally buried the lead and never said that you were bigger than him. So like it never got mentioned because like I think of Nate. What's funny is Nate and I are the same height, but I think of him as like he's like sort of older brother-y to me. And I think of him as like bigger than me. And then we met Jeremy and I was like, oh, this guy's freaking way bigger than all of us. And like Brad's a pretty big dude, taller than me, and this dude is like towering over everybody. I love it.
Yeah, he's now adopted his dad's beard.
Gray.
Well, no, but like beautiful and thick. Like he's got this beard that looks like he combs it out every day.
It's a really nice beard.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's really.
I use a brush. There's a horsehide brush.
Yeah, you can't do it. So
has a mid on it.
So Jeremy and I grew up, though close in age, and his grandparents lived right near me, and my grandparents. And so we spent a lot of time, especially once he moved. He spent some summers, so like from maybe elementary school through junior high and high school, he came back a lot in the summers. And Jeremy and I are great friends and still great friends, and had a lot of things to connect on. But the single most, wouldn't you say the one thing that we were most connected on was movies, right?
Early on. Yeah, early on, as little kids. Like I told you, I remember one day when you were sick in bed or something, and I was visiting my grandparents. I came over and we just watched movies for like 8 hours.
We probably rented them at Bev's Video Kingdom.
Probably, or your mom did, or something. Like that.
Yeah.
This was the good old days when your kid was sick and you would invite kids over to hang out with them.
Yeah.
You'd be like, "Hey, come over and sit with this sick kid."
He's sick and throwing up. So anyway, just keep him company.
Just don't touch his throw up. But if you do, just lick your fingers.
But yeah, I have like distinct memories of like almost every single movie we watched together.
Yeah, so we did a lot of watching, and I would say, so Jeremy also then, you dabbled in film, in a more serious way, right? I mean, you went to sort of, you took a lot of film classes, you thought about going to film school, you worked on the sets of some movies, right?
Yeah, and I did a documentary that was featured at the Santa Barbara Film Festival like 18 years ago.
Yeah. So he's serious, and I remember, not only do I remember watching a lot of movies with you, but I remember every single time as he got a little older, he had like an old school, various camcorders and other video cameras, and he made a lot of like home movies that were like, he would, edit them and make them, shorts, but they were like, my favorite, I think I still have this, is a parody of Speed. Do you remember
this? Oh, yeah, with the guy who had a bomb on his butt. The guy was jogging.
He's a jogger.
He's a jogger, and he has a bomb on his butt, and then the cop has
to can't stop jogging.
Has to jump on his back. So while the jogger's running, the cop's on his back, trying to figure out how to dislodge the bomb from his butt. My parents love that one, too.
I believe I have that VHS. Somehow I ended up with it, and I'm never giving it back.
Oh, that's a collector's item.
Yeah, so
I want to comment real quick, because I always, I've grown up with Nate, and so it's like I'd met Jeremy a few different times, and I legit, until I think today, really always thought you were like the older cousin that was like introducing him into cool shit and things like that. I legit always thought that you were like.
Well, that's because I was from Santa Barbara.
Yeah, you had the wisdom,
much more sophisticated.
And I legitimately thought that until today. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. The way that Nate talks about you is definitely in a like my older cousin like type of like reverence.
Got me into some
and then
cool
today
shit.
He's like, yeah, he's 5 months younger than me. I was like, what the fuck? Andy's 6'5"? What the hell is going on?
I think about 6'8".
Well, the funny thing related to that is that I always wondered, because Nate went off to Santa Barbara for school, and I was like, we grew up in a little town. I was like, how the fuck did you know about Santa Barbara? Like, because I went and visited, and I was like, when I was down there, I was like, what the fuck am I doing in Stockton? This is ridiculous. Like, I didn't know places like this exist. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, no, I had family down there and my cousin and stuff. So
yeah, cousin Jeremy and I used to hang out when I went to school there. He actually lived in the San Ynez Valley, and we used to meet up at this tiny little bar called the Cold Springs Taverns in the hills between Santa. I mean, literally the most hole-in-the-wall bar you've ever met. No one would ever know it was there. Even if they gave you directions, you'd be like, I'm in the wrong place. I'm going the wrong way. And his buddy Will played open mics there, and like every Friday night for a period of time we went and would like, go to this bar and listen to great, like really great acoustic music and hang out, and just kind of felt like it was our own little like sneaky little thing. And so tons of great memories with Jeremy, but the movie stuff was always something from the time, like you said, we were really little to the time we we're older. And I guess some of the reverence is, Jeremy's a guy that is really discerning in his movie taste, I think, because he just sees things in a way, in my experience, he sees layers of movies, I think, both in terms of the storytelling and in terms of the cinematography and art and music that just I don't get, right? I miss. And so sometimes our tastes overlap, sometimes they diverge. I think he also probably shares some of Zach's very dark tastes. Jeremy, you like a dark movie, am I right?
Well, I picked Children of Men, which was the movie you picked.
Yeah, he was like, if you're doing Children of Men, I'm in. So Jeremy's going to be just the fourth today. But I'm going to take one more minute before we go straight into sort of normal Bev's Video Kingdom. So, right, you've moved away from the movie industry, except you hang out here and run the Oaks Gourmet and at the base of the Hollywood Hills in what they call Franklin Village. Yeah. So basically, I've run some restaurants, run some markets here in this area, and that sort of transferred from movie making into running a restaurant, which is the same sort of like cast of characters and building a set and all that stuff. But
so real quick before we move on from that, I want to know, because Nate always talks about all the cool people that he sees down here. Like, what is your number one like starstruck? Like, oh shit, that's blah 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 that came into my store or you saw in the grocery store.
Oh man,
because there's been a lot, right?
There's been a lot. I mean, I guess like. As far as like the biggest one recently, Natalie Portman came in yesterday, so that would be like a huge one.
Yesterday?
Yesterday.
We were here yesterday. Padme? What is happening?
But there's been like
we were talking about her yesterday.
I know.
The ones that are more fun are like the weirdos like Pauly Shore and Billy Baldwin.
Oh,
they come in regularly, and they're sort of weird,
Well, you said at one point you like kind of were texted occasionally with Ron Livingston.
Not Ron Livingston. He comes in all the time. He's very friendly, but he's like up the road. But what's his name from Parks and Rec?
Oh, Ron Swanson.
Ron Swanson.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, that's where you got
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
That's even cooler.
Yeah.
So your
that's way cooler.
So your latest side project, I want to make sure we talk about this because I'm hungry, is that your dad, who's French, made this old family recipe for tapenade, and you finally were like, Dad, we should I know how to do this now.
Right.
I'm in the gourmet food
Right.
market business. So you convinced him to sort of like partner with you and make a tapenade that is called
Tapenade.
Papanade.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We called him Papa.
Yeah. Growing up, he was Papa. Yeah, it is funny. I remember growing up, like Jeremy's dad was never dad to him; it was Papa.
Papa.
Yeah. So
now Pop. Now that I'm older, Papa's like 7.
Papa.
I'm not 42 calling my dad Papa.
Papa.
But for the sake of the food, it's Papanade.
Yeah, so Papanade. So I'm holding a jar of Papanade right now, and we're about to taste test it. So let's all. So it's Tapenade.
I'll run you through it. Really,
Tell us what's in
it. Yeah.
It's a traditional south of France tapenade recipe: anchovies, garlic, basil, 3 different types of olives, and olive oil. And that's it.
And you put it in a food processor?
Put it in a food processor and you're done.
And it's basically a dip that you would put on like a chip or a cracker or bread, correct?
Yeah, bread, and then on top of that, anything else.
You need a vehicle for it, but honestly, I tried it a second ago, and I could eat it with a spoon or my finger pretty easily.
Yeah, you get to a point where it's addictive enough where you're sticking your fingy in at the bottom of the
I'm
jar.
ready. I want to try it with the...
Well, and for our old school BVKers, I mean, we haven't done a legit ASMR moment.
Could we do like a trio?
So I think we're going to have to
ASMR?
do the trio ASMR.
All right, guys.
You guys ready? Let's get those crackers going.
Well, that was legit fully. That sounded really good.
I'm fully erect. God damn, it's so good. So it's like salty but not
and
overly...
briny
But it's not overly
zippy.
salty, but it has that... Like you guys were saying, that umami.
Unctuous.
And it's that's what the perfection of this is that the lingering taste is not too salty. It's not too garlicky. It's just this perfect little, the flavor's just lingering, like, take another bite.
And I feel like it's coated my mouth.
Yeah.
So now I'm like just hanging out with the olive flavor for a while, and I don't want to take a drink because I don't want it to go away.
And it's inviting you back to it. That's what I'm saying. It's inviting you back into another bite because it's like, you know what? You really enjoyed that.
Lines inviting you back.
You're actually right.
Hanging out with the olives.
What you're right about is
Marketing wise, this is great.
You taking notes over there?
Yeah.
What you're right about is that it starts salty, but it doesn't end salty at all. Like when you get that initial hint of the salt, it kind of mellows. Fuck.
Yeah, you guys are literally not having another bite. I'm eating the rest of it. So anyway, that's fun. Okay, so Papanade you can get in. It's
available online through the website. And
okay. Give us the website.
Tapenade.
Papanade?
A lot of letters. Tapenade.com.
Okay, tapenade.com. So go check it out. It's really seriously delicious. I'm a big Papanade fan. And now I'm a big Papanade.
Yeah, we are all big Papanade fans at this point.
Invites you back for another bite.
All right, so thanks for coming, Jeremy, and I'm going to kick it back to you, Zach, to kick us off here.
And I mean, we're going to get into it. I think that like we said before, it's a sad ride. That it's literally a ride to me. I mean, this movie, some of the long cuts and the way that this thing is shot are just absolutely mind blowing to me. And if you're not looking for it, you don't really notice it. So like the first time that I watched this movie, I was like, man, that was amazing. I really like the way that was shot. And then when you watch it, it's like, oh, the way that it was shot is the exact opposite of some of these other movies that we talked about recently, like Taken or like Born Identity, where there's all these really quick cuts and it makes all these, but it's just like, he just lets you stew in the moment and there's tons of shit going on in the background. And every time that I watch it now, I just think, how many times did they do this? Like, did they have one shot at this? But they spent $70 million, so I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty hefty budget. Yeah. But I mean, how many times can you do that final scene where they're in that thing and all the explosions are going off?
Tanks are like taking off parts of the building and stuff, yeah.
And most of it seemed pretty practical effecty. Like, it didn't seem CGI to me really anywhere. I don't know. That's
kind of a staple of Cuaron is the fact that, like, Gravity, I mean, he tried to do it with as much practical effects as possible. I think that's what he tries to do, and that's what makes him a very impressive director when I'm going to challenge myself to make a movie that you're going to imagine that most companies would do some CGI and they're just going to rely on that. And he's like, no, fuck that. I'm a director and I'm going to make this shit happen. So.
And he writes the shit too. I mean, he's an impressive dude and has a great lineup of stuff that he's done, including Y Tu Mama Tambien. He did Children of Men. He did Gravity. He did Roma. And now he's got a new movie called A Boy in His Shoe that's going to be coming out.
And you're missing too Great Expectations, which, I mean, I love the book. It was one of my favorite books for a long time. I love the movie.
I thought he did a great job.
I think that movie was such a like weighty literary task, right? To try to turn that into a movie, it goes really wrong in a lot of hands. And you could criticize it, but I think, given that it was one of my favorite books, I really enjoyed it.
Right. I was just going for the ones that he had written. I apologize.
Oh,
but
okay,
yes,
yeah.
As far as his directing, yes, he's done a couple of other
And
things.
Harry Potter 3, don't forget that.
Yeah, Prisoner of Azkaban.
He wrote that.
Yeah, he wrote it.
He ghost wrote it, right?
He's super anti-trans.
Well, would it surprise you to know that he actually didn't read the book that the Children of Men was based off of? He just read the synopsis and then wrote from there.
Yeah, because he didn't want to like hold himself back. He was like, I don't want to have constrict myself to what this vision is. I kind of have my vision. I know where.
So they're like, this is the premise. The premise is that the youngest person in the world is 18 years old, and that's the
nobody
premise.
said kids.
Now go for it.
No, I think the premise is more of like a Christian kind of parable, like it wasn't
like the recent one with Elizabeth Moss. That's fucking really cool. That we just watched. Nate, come on.
Invisible Man.
No, Handmaid's Tale.
Right.
Handmaid's Tale is not a movie.
Handmaid's Tale is a very similar premise to this.
Yeah, it's a dystopian future that is very still similar to what we're experiencing. That's what I kind of loved about this movie is that although it's supposed to be quote unquote the future, it doesn't seem too far advanced. I actually love watching future movies and trying to identify where they got it right and got it wrong in
100%.
terms of like technology. And when I was watching this one, it was really hard to identify something that was like way far advanced. Like this film actually, even though it's 2027 and they shot it in 2006,
yeah,
Right.
it's like it's just barely the future. Like the cars are really dirty and beat up, and like the technology is not more advanced than even what we had in 2016, 10 years further than that.
But not only, I mean, so like it's to pivot off of that. Not only sometimes you have dystopian futures where they've made some technological progress, and you might look for that. The other direction, though, is like things have deteriorated heavily.
Well, that's the case in this one, right? I mean, if you didn't have kids for 18 years, then who cares about the rest of the world? Why is anything advancing?
Why
so in this case, the world is deteriorating.
But even there, right, like as compared to some caricature dystopias where things have deteriorated really dramatically, right? You want to see that you see a big city that's just completely fallen apart. It's like a level of disrepair that is unsettling because it's kind of grittily realistic. Like you said, you can imagine that 18 years into the future, if we kind of let shit go, it's going to look like it's starting to fall apart, but it's not quite completely. It's not like they didn't make it so far away in terms of its deterioration that you can't buy into it.
They mention that though. They talk about the other cities that have gone to that point, and it seems like that,
all of them.
Yeah, England is the only spot where it's still kind of holding together. And
but who's it okay for? Like just somebody that has like a piece of paper that says that they're a native
Britain.
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And everybody else is like taken to an internment camp because they can't support those people, and it looks like they're just killing them, basically, right? I mean,
that becomes the idea. It's not like a genocide about race. It's a genocide about like, well, our country is still stable,
right?
And the rest of your countries have fallen apart. So stay the fuck out.
And if we take
stable.
Take you on, then we'll be unstable too.
The end is still eventual. So now Great Britain is just trying to hang on to. Let's slow our end,
and that's exactly what it is throughout the whole movie. They have all the commercials and stuff for the medicine that you just take and it's going to kill you, right? So they're marketing that as like, look, the end is coming. We're the ones that are still holding it together. But hey, man, if you want to speed this along,
if you want to
by all means, exactly. No one's going to judge
you,
you, dude. Like, check this commercial out.
And that piece of it reminded me, and maybe this might be the thing about the movie that I think for me made it the most special and you set apart a little bit from a lot of dystopian movies, but it reminded me a little bit of The Road. And there's parts of The Road that I like in particular, and those parts of the flashbacks to the transition where they've just gotten into the realization that we are headed down this road. Right. And
I'd almost argue that The Road is like 10 more years from this movie. Yeah. In terms of like where things are headed.
In the US, 100%.
So, but I mean, but in some ways, right, it's a cousin to it, or, you could sort of the shared universe of it is that some people are willing to accept it more than others, right? And in The Road, of course, like it's the husband and wife that you see it really up close, that like they have a very different view of like what you should do in the face of like just how bleak is this, right? And she's like, this is the end. And he's kind of like, no, like there's still a hope that we should try to move forward in. This one, right, like Clive Owen, he's obviously sort of his character is a sad guy, and he has some, he drinks a lot, and he obviously, so maybe some, we obviously have people that are not in dystopias that have some of those sort of like depressive, sort of rounded out characteristics.
Although I'd argue real quick, he doesn't drink as much as you think they want him to think like he drinks. Like there's like 2 scenes where he takes a sip out. He's got the same small bottle through the entire movie. If you're an alcoholic, that bottle was done by the first coffee. Like he's not carrying that.
He's just a little stressed.
Yeah, he's just imbibing. Okay. He's just having a shot.
Well,
but I get it. In terms of movies, that's a trope. Like, oh, he took a sip off of a bottle. Yeah.
But if you have a flask in your jacket,
then you're an alcoholic.
In movie talk, you are a severe alcoholic. You may fall down at any moment.
But I'm just saying, like, you can see that he's kind of teetering, right? Like the way I read his character was like he's grappling with the lack of meaning in a situation where they still ostensibly in Britain are holding things together, but he's like, this fucking thing is coming off the rails.
But he's kind of ignoring it with his bureaucratic job, where he's just kind of like, fuck it. I'm just going to go through the motions, and I don't really care about much. But I'm also not going to participate either way of trying to fix things or worry about things. I'm just going to kind of just.
Well, his character is literally like a physical embodiment of like the whole point of the movie is like, if you don't have kids, then you don't have a future. So this world is ending eventually. His backstory was he lost his kid 20 years ago with Julianne Moore.
Right.
Since that moment on,
he's got nothing.
He's got nothing to live for. So he literally is like this. The metaphor is like, I don't care. I'm just working a dead end job. The movie's about hope, and the beginning of it, neither the world or him have hope.
Exactly.
At all. And that's why he starts to become sort of a badass and care, right? Because he sees, as soon as he sees the baby or that she's pregnant, he's
in
like,
the barn.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And then from then on, he turns into like the reluctant hero, right? Or even not that reluctant. He's just like, I'm going to figure this shit out. He doesn't have a special set of skills or anything like that. I mean, he's, kind of smart, I guess. And that's about it.
Well, he's a former activist.
Yeah, he reconnects with his wife, and that kind of inspires him a little. And then her kind of need was to see this through, and so he kind of takes that on in her honor. And
after watching her die right in front of him,
yeah, very graphically. God damn, that was a vicious scene.
Well, just a moment for that. Well, it's funny because the minute you mentioned that scene, and you kind of talked on it earlier, like how this is sort of an underrated movie financially as a success, but I think in terms of filmmaking, it broke so many glass ceilings. Like that particular scene in the car. I mean, there's so many great videos on YouTube you can watch about how they made that. Like the rig, talk about practicality, the rig they had to make.
Moving that camera in there,
yeah, it was genius. I mean, they did some CGI, some stitching, some blending, but just that whole piece, like that's when you say that, like I think everybody's mind just went, oh yeah, that scene.
Yeah.
Fucking ping pong ball.
Oh, geez, it's crazy.
Yeah, the ping pong ball was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from the time that the ping pong ball goes, for the next 5 minutes, ostensibly there's some cuts that are hidden by digital magic, right? Yeah. Obviously, but
still 95% practical.
Yes, and the way that it plays out is just so fucking cool. And the guys on the motorcycle and all just everything about it. She gets shot in the throat. They're like, put some pressure on it. You know what I mean?
At first, it makes you
feel the chaos.
You feel like they're going to get away. It's like they're kind of like avoiding them, and they're getting far enough. And you're like, okay, they're going to get away, and then they just keep kind of getting close, and then all of a sudden, boom, and she gets shot, and now it's like, okay, this is all bad.
I mean, that speaks to that kind of level of sort of immersiveness in the film work is what they were going for with like raw documentary style. Which,
and that's how you feel, right? You feel like you're
in the car.
Yeah,
the camera runs at a lot of different times. It runs up to a location, and I mean, it's just it really makes you feel like you're within this, and I think that just brings you closer into the world, and it kind of fucks you up a little bit more.
Because there's also very few close-ups. It's just still like someone, because if you're shooting a raw documentary, you're not going to push your camera into someone's face. Right. So everything is still like another body right there.
Yeah, so they're getting shot in the background, and just like they don't focus on that. It's just like, oh, boom, there goes
stuff happens in the background. So
what
it reminds me of is modern video games, right? So you're like, I don't know how many modern video games you play, but you run out and there's all this stuff going around in the background, but you're deciding kind of where your character goes.
Like Call of Duty-ish type stuff?
Yeah, totally, dude. Like, I mean, there's you run into this situation and there's people talking to you, but then they kind of run off, and then there's all sorts of stuff going on in the background. It's almost like a cutscene, but you're in it. You know what I mean? And I got that feeling a lot with this movie, and it's really cool. And it's like Jeremy was saying, like you feel like you're in the car. You feel like you're in that moment. You're following him through that like dilapidated city with stuff blowing up all around you, and you got to run up to the next rock, and you're kind of looking over, and so you see him, he's laying down, he's like breathing hard. It's just fucking intense.
But sticking with that sort of like raw documentary style, like there's so much stuff that is just so casually thrown away in this movie that any other filmmaker would have been like, oh, we just paid for this and we hired this camel, let's focus on this camel. But instead there's just like the camera just pans over to the window, and there's like a dude with a zebra in a park. Just that's it. Just pass right by. Next thing, a camel walks by. So like, but that when you notice that, you realize the texture of the thing. It makes it feel so much more real because I'm not spending the time being like, check out how cool this camel is.
or then they have tanks. I mean, the tanks are coming in. Like, they never like get up and like, oh, let's see what the tanks. It's just like these tanks are just like there, and you're just like, fuck, that's a tank.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it would feel so like the temptation to like, oh, let's focus on this, make a whole scene out of this crazy park or whatever. But just gonna pan over to the left and see it, and that's it. That's all you get.
And the tank shows up, and like, it's 3 minutes of the tank kind of just driving around in the background before it actually shoots. And as far as the viewer's concerned, there's no cuts before that. And it's just like perfectly timed right into it. It's so good.
Yeah. I think it's time to get that director in here.
Oh, yeah. Let's get
Alfonso.
Oh, you're gonna take that accent deep now,
Alfonso Cuaron.
Yeah, so
is he Italian?
He's Italian.
I'm pretty sure he's Italian.
He's definitely not Italian.
No, y tu mamma tambien. Is that not Italian?
Yeah, well, it depends on who's saying it, I guess.
I thought it was kind of funny that he's from a Mexican filmmaker.
Yep.
And one of the things they tried to go for in terms of the set, he's been quoted as saying this, is like, let's make it look more like Mexico. That's true. Because the whole idea was like, third worlds have already gone into chaos, so the first worlds are going to become the new third world. So they said, like, let's make London look like Mexico. And I feel like this might be a little weird thing for him to say, but he's a Mexican filmmaker, so he can say whatever he wants.
He can say it.
But that was the concept of the look of the place.
That's interesting. All right, so are you saying we're drinking with the director now?
We're drinking with the director. We're going to have Alfonso come in and sit down with us. I don't know what he's going to be drinking, but I'm going to offer him a BVK IPA. Where do they make this stuff, Brad? It's pretty delicious.
They make this beer at Last Call Brewing in Oakdale, California, and they have released all sorts of beers. They always have 16 beers on tap. You can go in there, you can buy 4-packs, you can buy crowlers, you can buy growlers, and they always have delicious beer on tap. And delicious food trucks are constantly showing up outside their doors, so you can get some food, some tasty beverages. And like I've said previously, the BVK IPA will make its triumphant return, hopefully at some point in the future.
And all of us here, I believe, are drinking the BVK IPA, except for Nate has. What do you got, brother?
I got Diet Pepsi and Grenadine with a little bit of California 46 whiskey.
Okay, so what's the deal with the California 46? Jeremy's buddy made it? I want to hear about it. We need to give them a plug.
Hold on. I got two things. First, this is your first run at the BVK IPA, and you do a lot of sampling because you buy the craft beer for the Oaks Gourmet.
I do all the buying for everything.
So what do you think of the BVK IPA?
It's one of the first IPAs that I've gotten back into because for so long, so many IPAs just kept on getting higher and higher in ABV and higher in stickiness and grapefruit and pine cone and stickiness. This is super refreshing. This is quaffable. This is porch drinking IPA.
Yeah,
okay. It is. It goes down too smooth, honestly.
I would agree with that.
It'll grab you by the ankles after a while and be like, "Hey, man, I'm still 7%."
You get yourself a little bit of some Tapenade and a BVK IPA. It's some porch sitting. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, that's a good day. That's a good day.
So we were in the Oaks Gourmet earlier, and by the way, if you are in LA or in Hollywood, if you're in LA, find your way to Franklin Village. Find your way to the Oaks Gourmet. It's an awesome place, especially if you're somebody who is going there and you're like, I kind of want to see some celebrities, maybe have a shot at it, want to have some delicious food, buy some cool, see the Hollywood sign, have some Tapenade. The Oaks Gourmet has great seating outside. It's a cool spot. It's got a walk-up counter. It's got a little walking neighborhood around it.
A little deli. You can get some food at.
Yeah, so go there and check it out. Get some Tapenade and say hi to Jeremy. Say you thought he was awesome on Bev's Video Kingdom. We went in there earlier today while we were taking a break from recording, and I was like, I need to get some whiskey. And you said...
Oh, I said this is the one, Old 49.
Old 49, and so it's a California whiskey.
Yeah, it's done by a guy in the neighborhood who branched out. I like to support him because as I branch out into my own product, he's a little ahead of me in terms of what he's doing. But.
Well, it's really good.
And kind of similar to the podcast community. We kind of do that shit too.
Do that too,
our locals and stuff.
Yeah, we've been asking a bunch of smaller people to help us out.
All right, so we're drinking with the director. We all got some BVK IPA, and I've got some whiskey and grenadine. Can you care if I throw something to the group first? Because I want to ask before I ask the director. I want to ask you guys something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We've all talked about directing.
Why do we love dystopian movies? Because this is a category.
Same reason we like horror movies, right?
Well, I don't know, and I want to know why.
You want to be scared, right? You want to be sort of, maybe the fun is like, oh god, this is so close. We have to change this. We can't let this happen.
You think so?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that scariness, right? Like someone's putting a mirror to yourself, but except it's in the future.
Okay.
I think there's that, and then there's also, would I step up to this challenge? Like,
Okay.
if I'm in that, if I'm in
you're
that
Clive Owen.
situation, like, am I like ready to? Okay, shit's going bad. I need to be strong. I need to support my family. Am I going to be that leader when the time comes?
So, Brad, you're saying that you would shoot your wife in the head if she ended up being a secret agent for the government that was sent to, you found out, you went on a digital vacation, just like Arnold in Total Recall, and then you had to shoot your wife in the head. Are you saying that you would do that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. That was the answer I was looking for.
Sharon Stone, that's close to my heart as a blossoming young man. The Sharon Stone.
You were like, Arnold, you shot her right in the face.
The Basic Instinct sliver, a 1-2 punch is what you're referring to. So I guess mine's a little closer to Brad's. I mean, I tend to think of it as the Dan Carlin, like, extremes of the human condition. Like, it's a fantasy extreme, but like, we are fascinated in movies with seeing scenarios that feel like things we couldn't experience,
like alternate universes.
And I think dystopian futures have like the special, I mean, sort of like what you're saying about horror movies, they have the special quality of like, they're just believable enough because of the climate around us that, you know, we kind of fantasize in a very like dark way. Man, you know, it could happen, right? We could be in that scenario. What would that be like, right? And so we're not in it, but we you know, sort of like to scare ourselves, like to sort of experience through movies this thing that like we're not a scenario we hopefully are not going to be in, but that we're very curious about.
Well, let me ask you this real quick: like, is this movie technically really considered dystopian versus like a Blade Runner, which is so different and so unique and so advanced? This one is just a hair away from being reality. I mean, even in this movie shot in 2006, they mention that Dylan, Clive Owen's son, died from the 2008 pandemic.
Yeah,
it was a flu, right? Yeah,
yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're so close to it. How is this dystopian? It's just once removed, like
so it's
cousins.
What I like to call like the Black Mirror effect, right? So you take one thing. This movie takes one thing and says, okay, no women are having babies. What does that have effect on society? Black Mirror, every episode is some sort of future where they add some sort of or change some sort of element of technology or whatever it is, and then you
take it to the 10th degree. Or
yep,
whatever.
And you get to see the effect of that one thing changing and how it affects entire society, right? Which I think is super interesting because there's so many things that we take for granted that you could take away or add on to, and the ripple effect of it over 10 years or 20 years or whatever it is, from 2006 to 2027, 20 years, and then you see like, oh my God, like the whole world has fallen into disarray because no one can have a baby. Changes everybody's state of mind about like the future.
What's the point?
Exactly.
Even childless, like I don't have a kid, I'm 42, but I don't think if someone told me, oh, we're not having kids anymore, I'd be like, well, what's
the fucking point? Yeah, let's wreck this bitch.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see how that's the major cataclysm for the whole.
You're absolutely right.
Well, and when it comes to dystopias, we're going to do a draft next week about some of the most memorable dystopias, and it's like if you take an Idiocracy, which is like the dumb but kind of like, you know, it's just people are lazy and it's stupid, but it's. I mean,
like, how is that dystopian?
Society's still kind of functioning, but it's not the violent like threat to your life on a daily basis like dystopia of like
Dune or Blade Runner, where like everything's a threat. You know?
Yeah, and I think those you could picture us going in both directions, and that scares the fuck out of me.
Yeah, but in this one, you feel like, you know, Clive Owen's still going and getting coffee in the morning, still watching news. I mean, life is still progressing. It's just not fun.
Yeah, there's just a bombing at the coffee shop, and he just barely reacts and just kind of walks away. He's like, this is just life.
Although I take umbrance with that scene because that bomb happens, and within 5 seconds, a woman walks out holding her arm.
I don't think amazing.
Well, it's amazing.
It's too fast.
Because if the bomb went off and your arm flew out, you didn't go have time to pick it up and walk out with it. That's a little too quick.
I like to think she had someone else's arm. She just like one landed on her, and she was like, "Can we reattach this one?"
She missed hers, grabbed someone else's.
That felt like it was a little callback to the Spielberg with Saving Private Ryan, where the guy gets blown up and he's looking around, then he picks up his own arm and walks off. So I don't know if that was a little tribute or not, but
I agree though. But it's jarring.
There was some Saving Private Ryan. So the whole last sequence of running through that stuff, it was hard not to imagine the similar D-Day beach.
Omaha Beach. Yeah. And like the ringing in his ears. Like, I mean, that's Tom Hanks is going through that in that opening scene, and like after that bomb, he's got the ringing in his ears, and it's like the arm. So it definitely was a callback for me for a little bit of Saving Private Ryan.
So we talked about at the beginning the fact that this movie, it was not profitable, certainly not very profitable over the long run, we don't think. And it's not one that gets remembered a lot as so we probably safe to say, given what we're talking about, that's an underrated movie.
100%.
Why is it underrated?
I mean, anytime you look on the internet, everyone says it's underrated.
Why?
Well, maybe it asks questions that people don't really want to sit and watch. I mean, when you invited me on this podcast and you gave me a list of movies, I picked probably the worst one to talk about because it's not fun.
Yeah.
You can't dish on it. It's a heavy movie and it's beautifully shot and it's tragic, but it's not something you're going to rewatch every summer with your buddies. It's not like Jaws or something where you go, oh, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's hard to say, I love that scene. Who says I love that scene during Schindler's List?
Right. Oh, I've got a Schindler's List story, but that's for another day. But yeah, I completely agree. I think it does a good job of, there's stuff in there for film nerds. There's stuff in there that makes you feel something. And while most of the movie has a dark undertone and it's a scary future, there's a note of hope throughout the entire thing, or at least throughout the second 2/3 that, carries all the way into, my wife was like, fuck, when we turned it off, she was like, thanks for making me fucking watch another depressing movie. And I'm like, what are you talking about depressing? She got saved. Humanity's going to get saved because they found this baby and they're going to figure it out.
That's the question I want to ask. I would ask the director what's your take? Is this a hopeful ending? Is this boat coming up? Is there some positive going on? Do they have some island where they're actually putting society back together? And
it's in the Galapagos. Apparently, that's where she's being sent off to.
So I mean,
she's going to go to the Galapagos? There's going to be just like evolution was discovered there. They're going to discover.
That's a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, it is, but they don't dwell on it too much, so you don't think about it too much. But when you talk about it again for an hour, you're like, man, baby.
But also, there's a dark side to it because it's okay, so she's having a daughter. So immediately she's going to become, is there going to be just a line of guys that have to impregnate her now? And she's going to be just producing children for the next.
It's not going to be a line.
I did think about that because it becomes an Adam and Eve thing. There's just only one kid. So is this poor kid now going to have to?
Yeah. Are they just going to be a reproduction machine?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's kind of sketchy.
Well, that's part 2. They were going to do Children of Men part dub. The script was too much.
I mean, they didn't solve infertility, right? I mean, that's the distinction.
No, so that's funny. They did not solve it.
Right.
Yeah,
So
she just had it.
Well, maybe they do.
They
some
didn't solve it, but the thinking is that she gets onto that submarine. They get her to a place where there's the leading scientists that are still alive, and they're going to figure out.
They dissect her.
But they also
not dissect her, dude. Quit being negative, Nate. This is a happy movie.
They went great lengths to never tell you why we went infertile.
Right.
There's no reasoning for that. Right. So it could be, that's up to us. It could be climate change. It could be all this kind of things, But so there is still a possibility that it was a fluke of time period in nature.
Well, talking about that ending scene, I've kind of taken on this new little task of each episode. When you end a movie, there's always a song, and that song's usually pretty prominent, and it's obviously got some meaning to that final scene. So I was thinking about I would offer this up to Alfonso of you know what? Why didn't you end this movie where she's in the boat and here's the other boat coming in and she's holding her baby? Why didn't we end with "Always Be My Baby," Mariah Carey? Wow.
When she gets onto the boat.
Wow. I mean, we could have done that, right?
Walk by every night. I think that fits, dude.
That fits.
Always be my baby.
That works.
I think we should do that.
Can I?
That would have been hopeful.
I mean, I already feel better just you bringing it up. So I will point out, since you said that, the maybe what I thought was the best placement of any music in the movie was Ruby Tuesday, while Michael Caine's character is assisting suicide on his wife.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's also Ruby Tuesday sung by an Italian crooner.
Yeah.
It's not. It's all the music he chose, while familiar, it's covers.
Yeah.
Most of it.
Yeah.
And that's it's like a guy speaking in bad Italian accent singing English.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it has that. I mean, that has that effect, right? Of being
when Michael Caine is
real discord, with the original.
Well, it calls more attention to itself in that way, almost.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and this is just a callback. I mean, speaking of Michael Caine, I mean, in his role, so obviously he takes out his dog and his wife, and then he comes back outside and he confronts the other guys, and all of a sudden, It's not a close-up. We basically get to see it from Clive Owen's perspective, and he's getting shot. It's not like we're closing up and seeing the violence. It's just like boom, boom, and then all of a sudden he gets killed. And it's just like all from this far-off perspective. And so again, it brings you into that universe. It's not like we got to see all the graphicness of it. We're just going to see it like happen and just like, oh fuck.
It keeps you in Clive Owen's eyes,
exactly,
as sort of the main character in the film. You're not like a cameraman doing grotesque close-ups of his.
Exactly.
But if we're picking nits, I mean, fucking Kane's down there. You can hear every word they're saying to each other, and then they jump in the car and they slam the door to the car and drive off.
I had the same thought.
I'm like, close the door a little softer, motherfucker.
If you can hear him talking, they heard you up there breathing.
My problem with that scene.
See you.
My problem with that scene was, so he leaves Michael Caine. They had a long time. How long did it take Michael Caine to kill his wife and the dog?
Quiet as quick.
By the time he comes back out, they just decided we're just going to
only go to the hillside
until he comes out. Like they didn't know he's going to be walking back out. Like why didn't they just book it as far as they could?
Right.
Like,
it also makes it seem like it's a weird sideways angle. They had to like drive around.
I guess maybe they had to drive up, and that so they.
To
knew
be
it'd be
fair,
difficult.
it didn't affect the story because they didn't get found out by those people except for by chance, right? I mean, the only reason they got caught is because those other guys happened to like be there, right?
What do you mean?
Was the guy with the dreadlocks the guy from Sons of Anarchy?
Jax Teller.
Was, right? I told my wife that, and she's like, I don't know. It never gets close enough to his face to actually see if it's him.
It's Jax.
You know, I would say for me, most of the scenes with Michael Caine, while I love him, I don't think they're needed actually for the movie. I kind of hated them actually.
But it's
that's the
one
problem
lightness.
I have.
It's the only lightness to the movie, though. Everything else is
also
so
so
heavy.
hokey. You know,
You think so?
When he puts on the stereo to play death metal and pretends to play guitar, it's just like
That's
such a
Brad's
bad
favorite song.
joke.
That's my Brad's favorite.
It was a remix of an Aphex Twin thing.
It's
like,
such a
it was
bad
kinda weird.
joke. It's such a bad joke.
Yeah, it was
the way he
kinda
does it. It's just corny.
I think that's the point.
and this whole thing with like,
I'm gonna be
strawberry
rocking-
cough.
I
You know,
choose-
pull my finger.
I choose to believe that in the dystopic future, like there's so few people that like you've got to hang on to somebody that's even remotely cool. Like weird old hippie Michael Caine with his bad jokes is like better than 90% of the people that are still alive. So you're like, I guess I'm gonna.
Well,
hang on
he
to
has
him.
hope, and I guess the whole movie is about having
Exactly.
hope and faith is the whole point of the movie, and I guess he represents hope. Although it had me doing math, trying to figure out if he's supposed to be such a hippie, and this is 2027, this dude would be like 92 by now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when was he? When was he?
He
a
actually,
hippie?
This is
yeah.
too-
When was he a hippie?
This is too much math. He was a hippie in 2012.
He was an '80s hippie.
Well, everybody
what
else
that
was
means.
doing coke.
Yeah.
He was still smoking weed and dancing with bell bottoms on. Yeah.
That's the one thing that made me think: is this film going to age? Because they talk so much about like weed being illegal, and I'm like, that's going away real fast.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, the rest of the film, despite its hindrance, it still feels contemporary. It still feels in the future, even though it's, you know what I mean?
Topically topical.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It's a lot of the stuff I'm like the immigration issues in Britain and like all that stuff. Like,
couldn't-
that's very topical.
I totally thought about Ukraine while watching this film,
Yeah,
even though it was
fuck
actually supposed to be about Afghanistan and post 9/11 politics. But watching this film, you couldn't immediately think, oh,
Right? Is this going
I'm watching Russian people in cages in a weird village being bombed out. It feels like what I see on the news.
When we recorded this, Russia has invaded Ukraine. And when you listen to this, something crazy may have happened, but it hasn't happened yet. I mean, crazier than World War III breaking out.
We
in
hope
Russia.
by now everything's calm.
God damn, I hope so.
So are we? What else? Anyone else going to ask something?
I was gonna say, just going back to the technology thing. There's one moment where the kid is at the table and he's kind of like
Playing Candy Crush?
playing whatever he's doing with that little.
He's playing
thing.
Candy Crush with his
Yeah,
fingers.
and
If
he
you look
just-
at it.
Oh, really?
It's just Tetris. It's like a little.
Yeah, it's like a weird little kind of hologram game,
Yeah,
and
it
he's
was-
just kind of going after it. That's like the one little technology spot that you see. That
It was Rubik's Cube.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's,
that's again. I was trying to identify like what we don't have yet, what they sort of projected, and maybe they had like motion billboards on buses and stuff. I don't know if that's happening yet. But here's one thing I took a problem with: zero cell phone use in that whole movie. No one pulls out a fucking cell phone. In that
I think the
entire movie.
grid's down. You know what I mean?
Is
Like,
that what happened?
Yeah.
the assumption?
Well, of
Yeah.
all the other technology, cell phone gone.
Didn't seem like they really
Because
had
that's the most
internet.
prevalent
Did
cell-
they have internet? Like, do they ever like?
Well,
Jump
they
on
still
the
got
computer and find
advertisements and
something
stuff.
out?
They got advertising
everywhere,
on
all
buses,
sorts of-
yeah.
like they're obviously
I mean,
programming that
old,
shit.
I mean, this is 2006. We had cell phones in 2006 when it came out,
not
right?
smartphones.
sure.
Not smartphones. No,
Just
well,
Nokias
iPhone was about to
to
come
play
out.
Snake.
iPhone came out like 2008.
We had the BlackBerry, buddy.
We'd have BlackBerry, so you could access the internet.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. So it's just interesting that they decided like it also could be a plot point because the book was written in the 60s. So it's one of those things where you watch a movie, you go, oh, if they had a fucking cell phone, this movie wouldn't exist.
Right. That always hurts.
Yeah. So maybe it's that. But as far as all the technologies, like even Dick Tracy had an iWatch. Of all the technologies, like the not having a cell phone in this movie almost seems like an insult.
Well, I think the one other little interesting thing I would like to talk to the director about is that Clive Owen never picks up a gun in the entire movie. Like, he's the hero, and he never shoots at anybody. He never like tries to fight back in that way. His fighting is all done through protection and through trying to just get her through this without like having to be like, now I'm going to be the pop, like shooting like bad guys and stuff.
He has a lot of luck. For sure. There's a lot of circumstances that kind of flush him into the correct situation.
When they're in some hallways and it's just like random person just like, boop, and they're down, and it's like, yeah, there's just some luck there that we're just random people just getting shot in the head just constantly. And it's just like, well, they missed.
Well, I guess that's the point of sort of being the Hitchcockian everyman. Like he has no skills whatsoever, not supposed to be there.
Right. And
felt compelled to be there.
And the fact that they did it that way, like, I think by the end I was intentional. I was like, there's bad guys getting shot and their guns are dropping, but he never picks up a gun or anything like that. And it's like, I think that's, I mean, I'm not going to say I wouldn't pick up a gun, but I mean, I feel like I'd pick up a gun immediately just to have it. But like, even if you're not good at using it, you'd be like, I still probably need this.
Yeah, during that whole long sequence where he's running, the long shot at the end of the movie where he's running, at some point he could have grabbed a gun from somebody and helped protect himself from the fishes, the people that were
right.
Julianne Moore.
Had he done that, he probably gets killed, right? I
mean, maybe because now, I mean, maybe and it could be in his mind. He's thinking like,
gets killed.
if I'm a just somebody who's living here and I'm just trying to run away, like nobody's going to shoot me, but the army's going to shoot me if I have a gun. The fish is going to shoot at me if I have a gun. So, or the fish is going to shoot me regardless. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was intentional, but he definitely does not use a gun in this whole thing, which is kind of cool to see. Like, he's not he didn't turn into a magical superhero that's just
he's the one that has zero political motive in the whole movie.
Right.
Like when they're in that cabin and they're all sitting around and Julianne Moore just died and they just elected this new guy to be the leader of the fishes, and they're spending most of the time contemplating how to handle this baby and when she should have it and how it's going to be a political tool. He's the one this is the one part of Baghdad, he just yells out, "Make it public!" Like his whole thing is not about the political motive. It's about this miracle happening. So yeah, he's not a person that's going to pick up a gun because he doesn't have a reason to pick up a gun.
Is that a callback at the end when he walks down with her and she has the baby and everybody freezes? Is basically like kind of saying that he was kind of right, that like
this is what unites us.
Yeah.
This is what's the miracle.
Yeah. So
no, exactly, but he was going to use it for his own selfish thing, right? But when he goes
the fishes,
Chiwetel Ejiofor. I'm not sure. I'm saying.
I think it's
Chiwetel Ejiofor. I apologize. The guy that plays Luke, he's great, and he's not super evil. He doesn't overdo it. He seems concerned, but they kind of overhear that he's the bad guy. And if you're not paying attention, you could miss that he's the bad guy. Like the scene where he hears at the window what's going on, it's like not super clear exactly what happened. And I remember the first time being kind of like, oh wait, did he just find out that he was the bad guy? But I mean, once you watch it again, that's exactly what happens. Anyways, Alfonso, thank you so much for coming out and drinking with us, man. We appreciate you. Gravity was cool.
It's cool.
I haven't seen Roma yet, and I feel bad for it. Have you seen Roma, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's a skip.
Really? Oh, shit.
Even
that is not what I expected.
Even our movie guys doesn't skip it.
God damn it. I'm still going to watch it at some point.
It's got some nice pacing, some nice texture, but I think it's if you were there, it would make more... If they shot this about Modesto, you guys would be like, oh, yeah, this is this is our movie.
We'd be like, I bought meth from that guy.
Yeah.
All right. So here at Bev's Video Kingdom, we like to play a little game, and that game is called Shag Snag Body Bags. Take it away, Scotch.
Is it a one-night stand, or do you hit it with a shovel, or take it home to mom and dad? It's like fuck, marry, or kill. It's Shag Snag Body Bag.
He really hits that fuck in it. He's like, it's like fuck, and it like kind of has a little reverb on it. I love that.
Don't forget that Scotch Beck himself said that if you have a different way besides hitting it with the shovel, if there's a different way you want to hear something get killed, throw it out there to us. If you give a suggestion, Scotch Beck's like, I'll record that shit.
He can like we've said before, Scott comes up with these amazing and awesome cool songs and then presents them to us in sort of a sheepish like, do you guys like this perfectly crafted thing that I made for you for free? And we're like, dude, it's amazing. He's like, are you sure I can change it?
We're losing our mind.
Yeah, and we're like, this is so awesome. So shout out Scotchback. We miss you, brother.
All right. So can I start
Take it?
out? Okay. So I want to shag this Tapenade first.
Oh, look at that! Look at that promotion. I love it.
No, it's almost gone.
I'm sitting here eating it. Yeah, and you know what my number one problem I'm having right now is the crackers don't reach far enough down into the jar.
You're gonna have to go fingers soon.
Oh, I make a Tapenade knife.
Can I get that at Tapenade? Yeah, okay, I'll get the knife.
I'm saying you can dip down there pretty good and get a nice big scoop. And Nate's taking off the top layer for sure.
It feels fancy, but it's like it doesn't taste like crazy pretentious. It's very, very good. I love it.
I love it. So my movie shag is Michael Caine. Not to disagree with my loving cousin, but I love me some Michael Caine. I actually think Michael Caine, at least in my era of watching movies, is kind of underrated. Even though like he's he gets accolades and the things he's doing, and
like there was a break from the 70s all the way
I
until Dark Knight. Like there was nothing in between.
Yeah,
I kind of agree.
I mean, I guess I just feel
he
like
did 30 movies in between there.
I'm not saying that he didn't do stuff. I'm just saying like Michael Caine, I think at that time was thought of as being, a hallmark, like a super A-lister. And he settled into, in more recent years, a character actor, right? I mean, that's what he's been for most of the last 25, 30 years. He's been a character actor. And so as a result, I think
as what? Like the older British guy?
Yeah, well, I mean, think about the stuff he's been in.
No, I know.
I mean, and so I mean, even in the Batmans, right? In this and
wait, you're saying underrated during your time period?
So I'm saying like
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels time period.
No, I'm saying in this more recent era, like since I've been watching,
this movie,
the last 25 years or so, right? Where he's more of a character actor than he's a leading man,
right?
100%.
And so I'm saying, I think there's a tendency to forget that like he was at one time a leading man, A-lister, like best of the best,
Kit Carter.
And so now you get like he's the Dennis Eckersley. He's the
so he's a submariner with a mustache like Brad's.
He's the Greg Smoltz of actors, right? Like
you mean John Smoltz or Greg Smoltz?
Yeah, I mean a mix of the two. John Smoltz,
Greg Smoltz. He's my favorite.
He's the John Smoltz. He had a career as like a great starter, and then all of a sudden he's a reliever, and now all of a sudden you've got like a reliever playing this role that's just pure smoke. I'm just saying he's
pure
so
smoltz.
Good. He's pure smoltz.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And he sells a very, very high, powerful cocaine.
Michael Caine.
Is that Scarface doing the commercial for Michael Caine?
Yeah, that is. Anyway, that's my shag.
Brad, what you got?
My snag is... Oh, shag. I'm sorry. My shag is... you mentioned this earlier. We were talking about the fact that we, in this little trip, we've done a few movies that we're recording pods for, and one of them was Taken. And I watched Taken with my son. I watched this with my son. And he commented, one, that he loved Children of Men. He was like, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. And then also he said, when we watched Taken, he's like, it's so funny that we went from this movie that had just these amazing long shots. And then all of a sudden we're watching a movie that just wants to jump like every like quarter of a second. And it's just like chaos, like as the cuts to make the action scenes in Taken. So I'm going to take those long shots that they do. I mean, some of them are like a minute long, some of them are 5 minutes long. And Cuaron just does amazing job with those scenes. And while there might be, I mean, people get so like up in arms about one shots, basically saying, "Oh, was that a real one shot, or did they do some little secretive splicing or this and that?" It's like he doesn't say that these were all done in one just take and like it was all absolutely 5 minutes long. He admits that they had to do some digital manipulation, but it still looks beautiful.
But it's nothing that you watch and you think, oh my God, like, okay, there's the cut.
Yeah, you don't.
What does it need to be? It's still choreographed. No matter whether or not there was a cut, it's still choreographed all the way through.
And so my shag is just his use of. I know that there was, like you said, there's some digital manipulation of the stuff, but I feel this movie feels very practical in most of its effects. to me. There's nothing super fantastical about it except for the weird like Rubik's Cube game that the kid's playing at the table that Jeremy mentioned earlier. And I think that's going to be my shag. It's just like you can make a fantastical futuristic movie and you don't need flying cars and you don't need like crazy like cityscapes that are obviously made on a computer somewhere. You can do it very convincingly the way that Cuaron did it here.
Yeah, it's like the most realistic future movie.
Yeah, totally.
Because it feels like it's going to happen. Yeah.
Go for it.
Shag?
Yeah.
I think my shag is something that a lot of people don't notice, and I didn't notice it until this viewing. That because when you watch it now, it's even harder to catch. At one point, he's wearing a T-shirt after he gets out of the, or before he goes into when he's at the school before he gets taken into the refugee camp. He's wearing a T-shirt that says London Olympics 2016.
Yeah.
The film was shot in 2006. So someone, costume design-wise, heard that news that London was going to get the Olympics in 2016, made a T-shirt in advance for that, and then made it look old like it had been around for 20 years. Ugh. So those are the small details that are all over the movie that are just like little touches that you go, I did not notice that when I watched it in 2006. I finally noticed it now, but I saw, why is he wearing a shirt that says 2016?
My son called that out, and I was like, I don't know if that's like World Cup or what, but like, yeah, I saw later.
Well, basically, the minute that England had said, we got the Olympics, the costume designer, it was like the same time periods, said, let's make a shirt that says London Olympics 2016.
That's amazing.
Brilliant.
5 years or 4 years in the future, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I love that appreciation to detail for those costumes and stuff like that. That's brilliant.
And that kind of stuff, like you said, is all throughout the movie, and the little details of the commercials that are playing in the background on stuff, and the quietus thing that kind of makes its turnaround. They never actually speak about it, but you sort of learn about it through the little kind of tidbits that get thrown at you while you're walking through the world with Clive Owen, which is super cool. All right, what do we snag?
Did Nate get to shag?
Yeah, I shagged Michael.
Oh yeah,
I shagged Michael Caine and Papenade.
Okay.
Brad, what do we
It's a hell of a night.
I'm going to take Alfonso Cuaron. I mean, it's just like we went through his direct, all the things he's directed. He's also wrote a bunch of stuff, and it's just like the guy makes interesting movies, like whether you really like them or not. And his first indie movie, Y Tu Mama También.
It's great.
It's just a cool little character study on two young boys and an older woman. And it's shot very well, but it was obviously done on the cheap. And then when you give him some money and he gets to really just kind of just go to work and like say, I'm going to do something big versus whether it's Gravity or whether it's Children of Men, it's like this guy knows how to make movies. And so I'm all about this.
Yeah, it's a big jump to go do Harry Potter from all that stuff too.
Oh yeah,
that shows some skill level.
And my family, big Harry Potter fans, and I'm pretty sure my wife stands on that. She loves
Prisoner of Azkaban.
She loves the third episode. She's like, this is legit.
It's a great book. Also, I mean, in the series of books, I think it's probably my second or third favorite of the 7. But it's also, I think, it's a unique movie, and maybe
it definitely is. From the first two, Christopher Columbus, like all of a sudden it
changes,
feels different, and it definitely takes it in a little bit different direction.
Yeah, I think 3 is like the natural predecessor to 5, 6, and 7, and 8. I guess
it's like this can get dark, and he's going to kind of lead you there a little bit, and just kind of almost like
it anticipates in some ways where the book series is going to.
Yeah,
I think that shows us a strength of a director. Like the new James Bond, I think really shows that the director had a lot of influence on making that more gritty and darker than the previous ones.
Yeah, that's
which is a
absolutely.
trend. Which is a trend that I am in for. Like everybody talks, another gritty Batman. Like, do you want to see like a silly Batman? Like, I don't. I want to see gritty, dark Batman. That's what I want to see.
You can always go back to the Adam West classic if you want. I mean,
but I'm saying
it's
like
still there.
Everybody, I think people tend to kind of like complain nowadays when they're like, oh, it's a gritty, dark reimagining of, but those are all my favorite movies.
I mean, my issue when it comes to like anytime you have a series where the directors are going to change, like I always think of like Rian Johnson with The Last Jedi. It's like people lost their minds, and they were like, some people were like, this is the most incredible thing. Some people were like, he just fucked up J.J. Abrams' whole like outlook for this movie, and it's so much that they were like, "Fuck, we got to bring J.J. Abrams back because this shit just went off the rails." And it's like that type of stuff. Not to get too Star Wars nerdy, but it's just like I enjoyed all of the series. Like I really did dig them, but when you switch directors, they can always take things in different directions, and,
Totally.
and the fan base can go ballistic if it goes the wrong direction in their opinion.
So I'm going to jump in. So my snag is going to be Julianne Moore, but not Julianne Moore because she's particularly amazing, although she's great. She's Julianne Moore. I think she's fine. She's very stoic and very, to the point, and she's great. She plays off Clive Owen well. When she goes into those moments where she kind of, they're reminiscing about their past life, and she shows a little bit of emotion. You're like, oh, look, they still have a little spark between them. You know what I mean? The ping pong ball thing and all that stuff. But what I'm snagging is not really her. It's that she's Julianne Moore. She's in this movie. She's on the poster, and she dies 30 minutes in. I love that in movies. I love when one of the main characters unexpectedly and very quickly dies or is eliminated from the movie, and then the viewer is kind of left reeling in this space where you're like, okay, I've just lost one of the main characters.
Especially because she's in it a fair bit, right? Like, so it's not like she dies 30 minutes in. And is only like she's a pretty major character. For
you think she's going to be on the ride of this movie?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're invested in her just enough at the moment she dies to be pretty crushed,
which I like.
Yeah. Well, you like to feel real dark and negative things. So it's perfect for you.
Well, Nate, what's your show?
Okay, so mine is definitely Clive Owen. I think that. So a lot of times, right? The standard, the question you ask is like, could anyone else pull this off? Yeah, the answer is definitely yes. Like, it's not a role that I think like Clive Owen is uniquely suited for.
It was supposed to be Leo.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
God, I like this movie way better if that's how it happens.
I
think it superstars it up too much.
Clive Owen's fine, but Leo can do all.
Yeah, I think that's right. There are probably even people that could do it better, but Clive Owen hits it perfect. Like, for me, like, he does it as well as he can do it with this role, and he does it every bit as much justice as you could hope. I mean, he's a kind of he plays that kind of slightly sullen guy, a little bit complacent, but with just enough growing hope as he sort of sees that light, and enough of his own kind of like ethical compass, right? Like you said, he sort of he screams, in the middle of it, make it public, right? Like he has a sort of guiding set of principles that come out once he figures out that he still cares about something.
Well, this is more important than what they're.
And to me, right, like Clive Owen like plays that like walks that line really well, and like progresses really patiently throughout the movie in the way that he kind of plays that up, so that you don't feel any sense of whiplash from him coming out of that kind of like nihilism that he's in at the beginning.
Well, I want to double down on you just because when we're saying that Leo was the possibility there, like I stand by my statement. Leo makes it too much of a Hollywood movie, and Clive Owen is that perfect blend of he is a absolutely 100% capable A1 Hollywood star, but he's also the guy that just, you ask 5 people on the street, like, who's Clive Owen? I think I know something he's been in. He's just unknown enough that it's like he brings that kind of like anonymity to it, where it's not just like, oh, I'm watching Leo do something. Like,
they'd be like, oh, the guy from Shootout.
Exactly. I mean, it's like what, Sin City? Like, I mean, like there's things that you're going to be able to pick out, but it's like I think he's got that right blend of capable, but also not too big of a star, where it's like,
well, yeah, I mean, if you want to make a movie for $77 million and make $70 million, then that's the guy. Right?
Financially, it might not have been the right decision, but
they got him playing Bill Clinton right now on that new TV show.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Clive Owen?
Clive Owen plays Bill Clinton on the new Monica Lewinsky TV show on FX.
Yeah,
really.
So he's still relevant, still around.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You're right. This is the zenith. This is the peak of Clive Owen when this movie came out, where he's the leading man. He has the power.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see what he's doing. He's in a lot of stuff. But yeah, after that, not so much. Settled into character.
If this movie financially kills it and makes a bunch of money, Clive Owen goes on to a bunch of bigger projects, right?
And he didn't quite.
Yeah. Right. I mean, he did stuff, and he's done a bunch of stuff, but nothing like, they're not spending $100 million on Clive Owen movies. I mean, maybe with inflation now, but...
So he doesn't look like Leo. You know what I mean? He doesn't have...
No, he doesn't. I mean, he's still a handsome man.
And he probably doesn't have the range, really. I mean, if we're being honest, right? Like, I don't mean that in like he doesn't have the range in even as an actor so much as like...
Well, this is at a point when he was in the talks to be the next James Bond. He was just before Daniel Craig. He was supposed to be the next James Bond.
I'd forgotten that.
I can kind of see him as Bond, though.
I think he would do a great Bond.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think there's a world where Clive Owen just fucking missed the boat a little bit.
Yeah,
it just didn't quite happen. But he's chosen better products or better projects as a result of that. But never became James Bond. Never became Leonardo DiCaprio.
The people that love Clive Owen really love Clive Owen.
Well, I'm in that boat because I was going to do my what's it? The
Shag.
I was going to do
Snag.
Snag.
I was going to do Clive Owen.
Well, it's
too.
on you. So, what do you think, Clive Owen?
Well, can I do the same as?
Oh yeah, we pick.
Yeah, I was definitely going to do Clive Owen because I'm, when I moved to Los Angeles in '97 or '98 to pursue filmmaking, one of the first films I saw was The Croupier. Did you ever see that film with him, The Croupier? Okay, well that's a stream suggestion then. It's on Netflix right now, but he plays like a down and out wannabe writer who also moonlights as a casino croupier. And I never heard of him before. It came out in '96 or whatever. It's a British film. I was floored, in love with him, thought he was awesome. And then from that moment on, I was like, Clive Owen's my dude. I'm going to watch every Clive Owen movie.
You're going to need to keep that in your head because we're going to talk about that during streaming recommendations because I fucking love that. I've never even heard of that movie.
You never seen Croupier?
No, I've never even heard of it.
It was actually so sad. Like a month ago, I went digging for it, couldn't find it, had to watch it on YouTube, and now just recently it's available on Netflix.
Oh my gosh.
But it's like one of the best like neo-noir. Like it's an early 90s neo-noir.
Okay.
Yeah. LA based or
no,
or it's in Vegas?
UK.
Oh, really?
It's a UK casino. Yeah, it's like a really downtrodden,
it'd be called
shitty
The Dealer if it was in America. Dummy.
Right.
You're right.
And he has like he's a wannabe crime writer. He's highlighting or moonlighting as a croupier, and he's got like a girlfriend from South Africa. It's a whole plot twist and everything. It's Croupier, first Clive Owen film as far as I know.
Actually,
leading man status.
That sounds dope. I'm in for all of that.
Croupier.
All right, so Jeremy, I'm going to kick it to you first. We got to pick something that we want to get rid of, we don't like, something, whether it's a theme or an actor or something that you do not like from this movie.
I think I already stated it the opposite of my cousin. I think I would remove Michael Caine's character.
Okay.
I don't need it. I don't buy it. I think it gives us some levity and, like you said, maybe some hope. But overall, it's just too hackneyed to me. It's just too corny.
And again, I sound like I'm creating a cinephile out of my son, but he's like, this is a different character from Michael Caine. I'm like, yeah, it's. He's like,
the fact that your 14-year-old knows who Michael Caine is.
Yeah,
he's not like, it's just the old dude from Batman.
I'll say I'm pretty blessed to have a son who's a sophomore in high school, and we can watch movies together, and he really likes to get down in the weeds about it, and we have some good discussions. So
yeah,
I think you have a point there. Your son's right though, because Michael Caine, I think he's a bad actor when he's trying to be goofy.
Yeah.
When he's doing Pull My Finger, it's just not fucking believable for Michael Caine because he's too serious all the time.
He usually has a gravitas about him.
He's got gravitas.
Yeah.
He can't go stupid. He can't do Adam Sandler.
So you're saying
he should be the wisest guy in the room.
I'm going to go hot take right now. Adam Sandler has more range than Michael Caine. That's a hot take right there. That's 100% true. If you got Adam Sandler who goes from Billy Madison to Uncut Gems, then Michael Caine, he can't do Pull My Finger. He's not believable. He's not winning an Oscar for that. So Adam Sandler is, I'm going on take, better actor than Michael Caine.
That is a hot take.
Here first.
You just hereditaried the table. It just went up in flames right now. Oh, you hear that? You hear that music?
That's what we do when the hottest takes come out. We got to get that hereditary music.
We're coming for you.
All right. Well, I'll body bag. So Julianne Moore and Clive Owen haven't seen each other in 20 years since the death of roughly since the death of their son. Which they were both crushed by, and then they've now reunited had very little time to reacquaint. It's not clear where they're at, and they're in some pretty stressful circumstances. The casual and kind of, sort of easy, semi-romantic feel to their interactions and very familiarity. I don't buy that at all. You
don't buy that they were once a couple?
No, I buy that. I just think that if you've just now seen for the first time in that long your ex-wife who you guys split up, presumably partly because of the death of your son, and now the world, by the way, has fallen apart in that period of time, and now she just kind of casually gives you a little kiss on the cheek and you guys blow
they have a scene where they yell at each other though, right? They have a scene where they kind of blame each other.
She says fuck you. You're not the only one that gets to grieve.
I get
because he says, I thought you handled it so easily.
I'm not ignoring that scene, but I'm just saying the whole thing, and this to me fell out of place in sort of the way that Jeremy's saying that Michael Caine did, in the sense that there's a heaviness and a darkness that I expect out of the movie, given what else is going on, and there's not enough heavy there. Like they force them into a too easy like a reunion.
I choose to think, and this is why it doesn't bother me what you're saying, Nate. I choose to think that it's Julianne Moore manipulating him, and she needs his help, and she needs him to do these things for her cause. And she's like, if I throw a little flirt his way, give him a little kiss, make him, and it works, right? I mean, it gets him to do what she wants him to do. I choose to think that that's what's happening, rather than they just happen to have this rekindling. I
like
of their
that interpretation, and I'll take that as like a little salve, but
yeah, except that she's not flirting with him to get the transit paper. She only flirts with him after he's accomplished his goal with the ping pong ball. The flirting takes place after he's done what he's supposed to do.
I think it's a director's choice because
we wanted, if she gets
when
murdered,
she gets killed, you got to feel like, if you feel like she's just like a conniving, like mean kind of spirited person,
I like that.
Then you don't have any care.
The ping pong ball was directly to make us feel like,
I like that better than my idea.
I think it's just
job,
because when she gets killed, you want to feel like, oh fuck.
Okay, but I think there's a way to make the relationship, make it feel like there's a lot of weight between them.
Well, there is with their son Dylan. Like they said it so many times.
Right,
like once that kid died, they were fucking.
But you don't feel that heaviness because, like, I guess part of what I'm getting at is like she would be the thing that reminded him most of that trauma, and he would be the thing that reminded her most of that trauma. And so, like, I wanted to feel that when they got back together, like in a more persistent way. And I think like you could still be very sympathetic. You could have them interact in a way that was very sympathetic to both of them, maybe simultaneously, without having, to make either one of them be manipulative or mean or shitty to the other one, just grappling with the fact that like, oh God, like this thing I've been trying to kind of forget is right in my face again.
Yeah, well, she says it like, I can't, it's hard for me to look at you because your eyes are his.
Yeah. I mean,
they might have fought more if she hadn't died. They might have had a much more
harder. If she hadn't died, they could have fought more.
Brad,
might have been a terrible relationship.
What are you body bagging?
My body bag is movies that hit too close to home, where it's like, I mean, we're talking about a dystopian movie, and when you can, Jeremy mentioned it earlier, it's like, I mean, mentioning Ukraine, it's one of those things that it's like, you can see the fact that a situation like this could ripple into other things, and they mentioned through the newspapers and the news broadcast that you hear that there's been nukes dropped.
There's 1,000-day siege in Seattle, which happened a couple years ago.
There's been some craziness going on, and
there's been a pandemic that they mentioned.
Anytime you start like adding those things up, and it's just like, oh man, and you. Because I think that the point is in a lot of dystopias is you never know you're really in that dystopia until you're in it, and it's like. We could always be in the future be like, oh shit, this was the start of where everything went downhill, and it's very easy to get into that mindset of like, are we just like devolving right now into like just chaos and terribleness? So I hate it, but I also appreciate it. So it's a body bag, but at the same time, it's like the fact that it shows it's a great movie in the sense that it makes me feel that way. So it's a body bag, but also I give props to.
We're 5 years out, dude. 2027. We are 5 years out.
I had the same feeling, except that like their baby stopped happening in 2009 in order for that 18-year gap to have happened. So,
dude, long COVID.
I think this is our 2009 from that movie this year.
Oh, boy. So, I mean, Idiocracy, of course, like, everybody kind of laughs about like, oh, that's where we're going. I mean, that's an easy thing to say, like, oh, yeah, we are headed that direction. But this movie really, when you look at the chaos and the violence that's going down and that could be possibility, it's like, it's so scary.
So I've got a kind of interesting one, and my body bag, I didn't have anything. I was like, this is like a top 5 movie for me. I love this movie so much, and I really love how tight it is. It's quick. It's fast-paced. Mm-hmm. I love everything about it. I love Jeremy's body bag, Michael Caine. I love Michael Caine in it. I love Julianne Moore and their relationship, Nate's body bag, and I really love the like super realistic dystopian future. So I want to take all your guys' body bags and just like kind of fucking
body bag
stuff them right into this movie and just fucking. I love it. It just
deal with
really,
it, motherfuckers.
Really hit hard for me the first time that I watch it, and every rewatch, I'm just like, man, this movie hits so hard. So I love it. What are we moving on to next, Bradley?
I think we're streaming.
I think it's time to stream, and I'll start this off.
Okay.
We're going to go lighthearted, but also, and I've talked about this movie before, it's just there's a Pixar movie that dealt with a little bit of a dystopia and one of the most just amazing, shocking 35 minutes of opening of a movie that I've ever watched, and that's WALL-E. Streaming on Disney Plus, like basically a silent movie. And for Pixar, a company that's done Finding Nemo and all these like very just child appropriate movies, but also just with a lot of heart. And then all of a sudden they jump into this dystopia, and it's like a silent movie where it's just like, and you don't get a whole lot of knowledge about it, but the Earth is fucked. And it's
the first 30, 45 minutes of that movie are just genius and just perfect.
Yeah. And I was like, I mean, I watched it with my son when he was really little. We were watching it at the theater, and it's like he was kind of into it, but it was just like I was transfixed. I was like, this is not for you. This is for me. This is crazy. Like I was super into it. And so
this is a warning.
Yeah. As far as dystopias go, I mean, it's a great film. So I'm going to promote WALL-E, Disney Plus.
Okay. Nathan, you got it pulled up?
I'm going to do one that I just saw for the first time not too long ago, and that's The Road. And I knew I needed to watch it. I had to be in a dark place, and because it's a dark movie, and man, is it dark. So if you haven't seen it, be ready, because it's really heavy, but it's really good. And if you want to sample a serious dystopian future that's disconcerting, it's The Road. You can watch that on Roku with ads. Who wants that, though? Everyone has Hoopla. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. We're hooping.
Hoopla, Voodoo with ads. Tubi. Canopy.
It's Tubi.
Tubby. Pluto TV with ads. Plex, IMDb TV. You can
they've thrown this.
You can see it on every garbage platform that has a bunch of ads.
And yeah, so let me just throw it out that I'm guessing the ads are not going to mix well with The Road, so maybe you just pop for the $3.99.
You probably want to watch that and like
watch it on Apple.
You don't want it to be broken up by all of a sudden you're like Olive Garden.
And for the love of God, do not buy that movie, because you will never watch it again.
I love The Road. Cormac McCarthy is my dude. I am going to recommend a TV series that I talk about constantly on this show, and that is Black Mirror. I'm going to say I love 70% of the episodes.
I'd go 80, I think.
There is a good 20 to 30% of the episodes that I just are garbage and not good at all. And then I
think they're all well made.
Some of them aren't even well made, but a majority of them, if you just go through, there's 3 or 4 seasons on there. If you just go through every episode, they're 1 hour long. Every one, they're not connected at all.
Would you say the one with the little robot dogs?
That's one of my least favorites.
Oh, least favorite.
I do not like that episode.
I was going to say that's like the dystopia.
Heavy Metal. I do not like that episode.
Heavy Metal. Oh, wow. I thought that would be your dystopia right there.
Oh, dude. But, like San Junipero, or whatever it is one of the greatest hours of television of all time. Game Test, I love. There's so many of them. The one with Fat Damon, and he's like on Star Trek. The very anyways,
Jesse Plemons.
Oh,
Jesse Plemons.
Yeah,
sorry.
the Star. Yeah.
I call him Fat Damon
because you're a very nice person.
Yeah, because I'll never meet him, and he refused to be on the pod. We asked.
Yeah,
him.
I was just going to say, now you'll never meet him.
Jeremy, are you familiar with Black Mirror?
Yeah, of course. And I think my film sensibilities tend to line up with his a little bit. And I'm a big fan of both of those episodes for sure.
What about Heavy Metal? No?
Heavy Metal I hated.
Yep, me too. I barely got through it.
I did not like it.
God, it was, I mean...
it felt too much like a gimmick. It didn't have the same intellectual smarts as some of the other episodes. Like the gimmick was that these robot dogs are hunting you down. Yep. That's a scare tactic versus like a intellectual, emotional drive.
The problem for me is just I said, the Boston Dynamics videos.
Oh yeah.
Shit
well, I mean that's where it's Black Mirror because it's very close.
Yeah, and
the dogs look the same.
They took the Boston Dynamics dogs and they said, "What if those little motherfuckers are coming after you?"
Yeah. They have guns and shit.
I mean that's happening. I mean we know that's happening. It's happening.
It's guaranteed.
Those things. Yeah, those are the future of war, and I mean just those contracts are gonna be gigantic.
Jeremy, what do you want to recommend?
I have a little obscure... well, let me ask you this. What's the difference between post-apocalyptic and dystopian? Are those used interchange the same?
So dystopian would be just any future that is
imagined
today, right? But post-apocalyptic means that there was an apocalypse event, which would mean that...
And that doesn't happen in... is it one of those things like tequila can't be tequila and it's from tequila? Is it like dystopian can be dystopian without an apocalypse, but an apocalypse is going to be dystopian no matter what?
I think you're absolutely...
I think there you go.
You're 100% correct. I love that break.
You don't have to have an apocalypse to have a dystopia, but
if you have an apocalypse, you're going to have dystopia.
100%.
I have an old French film from the 90s, 1991. It's called Delicatessen. And it's a post-apocalyptic France where a butcher owns the apartment building above his shop, and just like Sweeney Todd, starts using his tenants because the world is out of food.
There's no food.
There's no food, so he's using his tenants to sell in his butcher shop.
What year was it?
91. And it's a French film.
It's a dark comedy, correct?
Dark comedy. Yeah, it's dark. It's so well filmed and so clever. It's very much in the style of Amélie.
Okay.
Where some of the shots are kind of, fun and jokey. And
Amelie's
Brad loves that movie.
I've tried to get these guys to watch it.
You've got Brad's attention.
Then Delicatessen is the dark Amélie.
Okay.
It's Amélie meets Sweeney Todd. Like, nobody ever said that.
I gotta jump in.
Nobody ever wanted this, but they said Sweeney Todd meets Amélie.
Who's asking for this? It's Brad. Okay, perfect.
I'm on board.
It's a Delicatessen.
And your Clive Owen dealer movie, which was called
Croupier.
Man, I'm gonna have to.
That's
make
not
a
dystopian,
list.
but it's definitely a film noir.
I'm gonna have to make a list. These sound dope. All right, so what kind of reshelving or alternate ending would we put on this movie? I think Brad has one that he has crafted over there, so let's kick it to Brad.
I do, and I'm not sure exactly how to. I'm going to do a reshelve. So and it's going to be kind of a different movie. So it's the same universe, but there's a matchmaking company that believes that maybe the right combination of people will lead to a pregnancy. So they're constantly mixing and matching and just paying folks to have sex with each other.
This is definitely a Black Mirror.
In hopes
I was just going to say.
In hopes that they'll procreate. So the movie follows the life of one of these people. It's their 9-to-5 job, where basically they're just fucking people constantly. That's like their job. And eventually they become kind of supportive of the Fugees, because like those folks are not being. Is it Fugees? They call them Fugees, right? Yeah.
They're mad fertile.
I was like, it's not Lauryn Hill, but it's.
I was just the big Lauryn Hill fans.
But they're the support of the Fugees, and because they're not including the Fugees in like this service, and so like that's how they kind of get on board with trying to support themselves.
Wyclef's like, what the fuck?
And and so from that point, it just becomes like they kind of join into the activism of trying to support the Fugees. I don't know if they become a fish or what they end up doing, but
wait, what? They become a fish? What did you just say?
Aren't they called the fish?
Yeah,
the supporters.
The fishes. Yeah. I'm sorry.
The uprising.
I thought in your alternate ending they
Shape
became
of Water
fish.
becomes
Yes, exactly. I was like, oh, they're
different
fucking
Mexican
fish now.
filmmaker. Different Mexican filmmaker.
Oh my god.
No, so yeah, I
excited.
don't know what direction it goes, but like I think it would be interesting to see. Like, I mean, that's your job. It's like they're still holding out hope that somebody's going to be able to procreate. Maybe we just don't have the right match yet, and so they're just letting people just fuck all day, and it's like that's your job. You're 9 to 5.
Dude, I love that. So my alternate ending is the twist of the movie. Everything goes the same until the twist, which is Michael Caine gets killed, the wife gets killed, Owen is just distraught and out of his mind, and then on the drive over to wherever they are going to end up, he finds out that she's not pregnant. And that it's all bullshit, and the midwife and yeah, just whatever it is, he finds out that she's not pregnant. She
showed that she's pregnant.
She's got indigestion.
So we take that out, right, and we make it so that he like walks. He finds out that she's pregnant. He's like, we're going to save the world, blah blah blah. And then at some point he walks in and finds out that she's not pregnant and that she's full of shit, and she's just using them to like. For her own means or whatever it is to feel important or to get to this spot or whatever it is. And then he has to kind of like grope with that and deal with that. And then, it kind of takes, you have this whole hopeful element throughout the movie, and it kind of takes that away without killing the baby. Because my other one where you take the hope away is that the baby dies in childbirth.
They play that for a second where that baby does not
cry. And my wife, who delivers babies for a living, is like, that baby is not crying. Something is up. Although she did comment that
burping it or something.
No, but when the baby is first born.
Yeah.
It takes a second.
Take a second.
But my wife, who delivers babies for a living, is like, she needs to do something. She's watching this baby not move and not make any noise, and she's like, he needs to do this and this and this. I'm like, babe, he doesn't know what he's doing. He just like.
By the way, he did nothing during that scene.
Yeah.
He walked up and washed his hands and went, push. Like, he didn't do anything.
Do your breathing techniques.
Yeah, he didn't do anything.
I will say,
good Lamaze coach.
He didn't even do that.
For a movie baby, though, like, it's a pretty practical baby. Like, it looks pretty legit, like very skinny and dirty, and like a baby would look if you just had it in some sort of warehouse.
I was also going to say, I mean, the CGI effects are unnoticeable. Clearly that baby is CGI mixed with some animatronics, but for that time period, it's completely unnoticeable.
It's pretty solid.
Pretty solid CGI effects.
So that was my attempt to take the hopefulness away at the end and just leave you super bleak.
Real bleak.
I could do you one better with taking hopefulness away.
Okay, well let's hear it. What's your alternate ending?
Well, so like Clive Owen dies at the end, right? That's sort of like a real bummer. He finally had something to live for, or something to sacrifice for after a mundane middleman job. So what if he doesn't get shot and he's fully alive and they're rowing the boat and the other ship comes up and they go, okay, we'll take her. And he's just sitting in that little rowboat by himself. Well, what the fuck? All that was for nothing. Oh, okay. So now I gotta row myself back over to this fucking war zone.
Well, and
if that ends like that,
the jets came in and just blew shit up. So it's like things are even worse.
So now he's just floating in a no land is worth going back on top of. So
I almost like that. Maybe they pull up and they throw down the little rope ladder, and he's helping her get on the rope ladder, and he's like, "Thank you guys so much. We went through so much," and they just shoot him in between the eyes, or like they're speaking a language he doesn't quite understand.
Yeah,
and
we don't have enough food.
In the eyes. Yeah, exactly.
Just
I love that.
Because in reality, what usefulness would he have? I mean, that's why they have to kill him at the end, because they wouldn't invite him on the boat. It's like,
and we
not enough people.
We end the movie with Key clutching the baby, and they're like whisking her off onto the boat, and she's screaming in agony because this dude just got murdered right in front of her. You know what I mean? And then it's like credits.
No hope.
I love that shit.
Always take it darker. We can always take it. God, we can always make it a little more evil.
Nate, you got something that's going to make it happier?
No, I need to go watch The Office.
Well, yeah. What was the end credit sequence? The music was going to make it happier.
Always be my baby.
And then end with a question mark.
I almost like that.
He's like floating in the water, face down.
That music comes in. She's screaming because they've just killed they just killed Clive Owen. She's freaking out. They take the baby from her arms, and then all of a sudden she like you and I like he starts singing like it just kind of like breaks the third wall and starts singing. Yeah, and it's just like and then
on the Galapagos Islands.
And then the real Fugees come in and start playing, and Lauryn Hill's just like you.
Or we could have the people on the boat start. We are the world.
It's like, kind of like a 40-year-old virgin ending where it's like just all of a sudden out of nowhere breaking into musical.
Man,
I love that. I think the sequel should be called like Children of Key, right? Because that was the lady's name, and then and then
Children of Dylan. She's naming her kid Dylan.
Oh yeah,
Children of Dylan.
I thought she was naming it Bazooka.
No, at the very end she changed it.
And the first one was like,
Florful
or Fubo or
Flubo? Yeah,
yeah. It was. She named it after a streaming service that went under in 2022.
She's like, that was my favorite streaming service back in the day.
Oh my gosh! Thank you guys so much, Jeremy. Thank you so much for coming out. And
happy to be here, you guys.
Hey, and make sure you buy a jar or 10 of.
That's a case of 12.
Buy a case of 12 of tapenade. How much is a jar?
It's $12.95.
$12.95.
Yeah,
okay, totally worth it.
Your taste buds will be happy.
Yeah. So tapenade.com. And if you're in LA, find your way to Franklin Village. Go to the Oaks. If the tall guy with the beautiful white beard is there, say hi. Tell him you loved him on BBK. Maybe buy something from the food counter. Get a coffee.
Tell him point me to the celebs.
That's right.
And then you walk right out and go right over to the Scientology Center right across the street. That is the most insane building. So we're walking down the street, and I'm like, what is with the Disney Prince like palace over here that is like right in the middle of the block? And they're like, that's the Scientology Center. And I'm like, holy crap, they are not fucking around.
Celebrity Center.
That's the
dude, it's so like imposing and impressive and kind of haunted looking and just crazy, dude.
Same guy who built Chateau Marmont architecture.
Really?
Yeah. It's a beautiful building. So you walk inside, and they turned it into like a 80s conference room in Iowa.
Really?
Yeah, it's terrible for you.
It's got like drop ceilings with like
popcorn.
It's really awful. It's really awful. It does a disservice to the outside.
I told Brad we should go get our thetans measured and maybe see if we can see Laura Prepon.
I was assuming that they might check our bank accounts first, and they're like,
yeah.
They test us like, oh yeah, your thetans are great, and then they look at our bank account, no.
You're like, we've made $60 from our podcast.
All right, yeah. Thanks for it's been. I feel like I can't overstate that my movie development and love of movies was not independent of Jeremy's.
Thank you, Cass.
So it was.
I think it's mutual.
It's pretty cool to have you on here to talk about a movie. We'll have you back.
The either fortunate or unfortunate thing for you, Jeremy, is that you've been really good on this, and so we're gonna have to ask you back. You're definitely gonna have to come back.
Sorry, buddy.
I had a great time.
We are going to be back next week with a draft. We're going to do dystopian futures and
best dystopias in film. Yeah,
best dystopian future in a film, and I am very excited. And I'm going to clean the floor with these fucking clowns.
You know who's judging?
No, but it doesn't matter because you guys don't tell me. And then after we do the draft, then you guys are like, "Oh, you didn't know this guy was the judge?" And I'm like, "Oh, the guy that like wrote on Hunger Games or whatever it is." And I'm like, "Man, I should have made that pick."
We've got Andrew Cromartie, the Rewatchables
from the Rewatchables Facebook page.
Yeah,
my boy Jim.
I don't like to put those clarifiers because he's basically part of the Rewatchables.
Yeah, Ringer Network. All right, yeah. Hey, thanks, guys.
All right,
bye.
I wanna be at Beverly's, bringing me home with my movies. Just a blind by, no reason why. I love this scene. Nick Nate, I can brag, your favorite podcast. Let's start this